The instant Donovan Clay's fist slammed against the polished tabletop, a silent understanding washed over the room. Someone was about to vanish. But when a waitress, seemingly oblivious to the palpable tension, walked directly toward him and uttered 3 simple words that froze even his hardened bodyguards in mid-draw, the very power structure of the city seemed to fracture in slow motion. Little did she know, those words would be the catalyst for a chain of events involving a high-stakes kidnapping, a full-blown federal raid, and a desperate attempt by the city's most feared monster to burn his entire empire to the ground just to ensure her safety. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that 28-second subscribe button, like the video, and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories, and trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let's rewind back to the hours before, to where it all began. The extravagant crystal chandeliers of the lycan cast a warm, golden glow that bathed the entire dining room. Each ray of light danced across the pristine white linen tablecloths and the meticulously arranged, gleaming silverware. This wasn't merely a fancy restaurant. It was a veritable cathedral of power, adorned with tasteful cream-colored walls and heavy, luxurious silk drapes. It was the kind of establishment where influential senators whispered secrets over glasses of expensive Bordeaux, where major corporate mergers were finalized with simple handshakes under the soft glow of candlelight, and where the city's most ruthless figures from the criminal underworld came to play the part of civilized gentlemen. On this particular Friday evening in late autumn, the air was thick with a palpable sense of importance, punctuated by the smooth sounds of a jazz pianist tucked away in a cozy corner, the delicate clinking of crystal glasses and the hushed murmurs of conversations worth millions added to the ambience. The patrons knew better than to raise their voices too loudly. Discretion was the ultimate currency here. Power was measured not in boisterous pronouncements but in silent understandings. Deals that could make or break fortunes were brokered over glasses of fine wine and plates of perfectly prepared filet mignon. Politicians rubbed elbows with corporate executives, who in turn sat alongside men operating in the shadowy fringes of society. Everyone politely pretended not to notice who was dining with whom. Everyone pretended that the razor-thin line separating legitimate business from criminal enterprise didn't completely dissolve beneath the opulent chandeliers. Every Friday, like clockwork at precisely 8 p.m. For the past 5 months, the corner booth remained conspicuously unoccupied, as if waiting for royalty. Donovan Clay arrived with his usual punctuality, flanked by 2 imposing men in dark suits who detached themselves and took up positions at a nearby table, acting as satellites orbiting a volatile planet. Vincent and Carlo. Every member of the restaurant staff knew their names by heart. Everyone understood the unspoken rules. Avoid prolonged eye contact, don't offer menus unless specifically requested, and absolutely avoid making any sudden movements in their vicinity. Donovan claimed the coveted corner booth with the effortless confidence of a man who owned everything his gaze fell upon. He leaned back against the wall, positioning himself to survey the entire dining room with the keen, predatory awareness of a hunter watching a watering hole. At just 37 years old, he exuded an aura of absolute control and subtle menace. His tan suit was a testament to meticulous tailoring, the kind of craftsmanship that whispered of immense wealth without the need to shout. The open collar of his crisp white shirt revealed a glimpse of a gold chain that caught the light with each measured breath. And on his wrist, barely concealed beneath the cuff of his impeccably tailored suit, a family crest tattoo served as a clear indicator of his lineage: old money, old crime, the most dangerous kind. His dark hair was meticulously slicked back, not a single strand daring to stray out of place. His jawline was sharp and unforgiving, his stubble trimmed to calculated perfection. His eyes were dark, cold, and constantly shifting, meticulously tracking every entrance, every exit, and every face that dared to turn toward him, only to quickly look away. Donovan Clay was the embodiment of power, money, and violence, all wrapped in exquisitely expensive fabric. The restaurant staff visibly tensed the moment he walked through the door. Shoulders straightened, smiles became noticeably more forced, and even the most seasoned servers moved with extra caution, as if the very air had become fragile and prone to shattering. Mr. Clay, Paolo, the head waiter, approached with a visible air of nervousness despite his 15 years of carefully cultivated professional composure. His hands instinctively wanted to tremble, so he clasped them tightly together in an attempt to maintain some semblance of steadiness. "Your usual this evening, sir?" Donovan remained engrossed in his phone, his gaze fixed on the screen. Messages flooded in, one after another, each demanding his immediate attention. Territory disputes flaring up in the South End, shipment delays snarling operations at the harbor, and whispers of someone skimming profits from the lucrative dock operations. His jaw tightened imperceptibly as he scrolled through the messages, his thumb moving across the screen with barely controlled aggression. "You know what I want, Paolo?" "Of course, sir." "Wagyu ribeye, medium rare. The 2007 burrata truffle risotto on the side." "Run it." Paolo retreated with the hurried steps of a man who had narrowly avoided stepping on a landmine. Relief etched into every movement as he made his way back toward the kitchen. Around the restaurant, conversations continued, but everyone kept a watchful eye on the corner booth, using their peripheral vision to track Donovan's every move. They had all heard the stories, the hushed whispers exchanged in boardrooms and bars across the city. Business owners who dared to refuse Clay's so-called protection woke up to find their buildings reduced to smoldering ash. Rivals who challenged his established territory simply vanished without a trace, their disappearances conveniently explained away by rumors of sudden moves to Florida or Mexico, or, in some particularly grim cases, simply into the ground. Nothing was ever officially proven, of course. Donovan Clay operated with a masterful understanding of the gray areas that existed between law and outright chaos. He had perfected the subtle art of never leaving any fingerprints. He didn't need to raise his voice or issue explicit threats. His carefully cultivated reputation did all the talking for him. Anna Morano pushed through the kitchen's swinging doors, carrying 3 plates balanced with the practiced grace of someone who had been doing this since she was just 18 years old. At 26, she moved through the dining room with a natural confidence that suggested she belonged there. Her dark hair was pulled back into a sleek, low ponytail that emphasized her high cheekbones and striking features. Her grandmother's delicate pearl earrings caught the light of the chandeliers with each step she took, adding a touch of classic elegance to her appearance. The restaurant's standard uniform looked particularly crisp and stylish on her. A white button-down shirt, black suspenders, and the signature red apron tied around her waist, clearly marking her as a member of the front-of-house staff. She had been working at the Allion for 8 long months now, consistently pulling double shifts because the generous tips she earned here could cover an entire month's worth of tuition for nursing school in a single weekend. Between this job, the overnight shifts she worked at City General Hospital, and the weekend tutoring sessions she conducted for pre-med students struggling through anatomy, she was barely keeping her head above water. Whatever it took to help her younger brother, Leo, get through community college, and to push herself through that final, grueling semester. "Table 9 needs water refills," she called out to Stefano, the busboy, before heading out onto the main floor to deliver her orders. "Anna, wait." Louise, her manager, caught her by the elbow, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper, his eyes darting nervously toward the corner booth and then back to her face. "Corner booth, be aware tonight. Don't look him in the eye for too long. Don't speak unless he speaks to you first. Actually, just stay clear of him if you can manage it." Anna glanced towards the booth and saw a man in a tan suit staring intently at his phone, his expression like a barely contained storm cloud. "Who is he?" "Just trust me on this one. Stay clear." Anna nodded slowly, but confusion flickered across her face. She didn't quite understand the fear she saw in Louis's eyes, or the tension in his grip. In her world, people were simply people, regardless of their wealth or social standing, their power or their struggles. Everyone deserved the same basic respect and fundamental dignity. Her father had instilled that unwavering belief in her from a very young age. Detective Samuel Morano had treated street kids and influential senators with the same level of courtesy and respect. That very lesson had ultimately cost him his life 7 years ago, but Anna still clung to it with every fiber of her being. He knew it was perfect. Chef Emmanuel never missed a detail. But the rising tide of rage within his chest demanded an outlet, and the perfectly cooked steak sitting in front of him became the most convenient target. Anna was heading towards table 12 with their entrees when she heard the voice. It cut through the smooth jazz and hushed conversations like a razor-sharp blade through silk, sudden and filled with barely controlled fury. "This is unacceptable." The restaurant didn't just quiet down. It froze completely. Forks stopped midway to mouths, wine glasses paused at lips, and conversations died mid-sentence. Even the pianist's hands hesitated over the keys, the melody fading mid-phrase, as if someone had hit the pause button on reality itself. Anna turned towards the corner booth. The man in the tan suit was standing now, his imposing 6'2" frame towering over the table, his expression thunderous. The plate sat before him, the steak cut open to reveal the perfectly pink meat. "I asked for medium rare." His voice carried across the silent room, each word deliberate and dangerous, controlled rage wrapped in a veneer of expensive diction. "This is raw, bloody. Are you trying to insult me?" Paolo rushed over, his face drained of all color. "Mr. Clay, I apologize profusely. I will have Chef Emmanuel prepare another one immediately. There will be no charge, of course." "I don't care what Emmanuel does." Donovan shoved the plate away with barely controlled violence, the silverware clattering against the table and the wine glasses trembling. "This is incompetence, pure incompetence. Do you understand me?" The entire restaurant held its breath. Waiters stood frozen mid-step, trays suspended in mid-air. Diners stared intently at their plates, pretending not to watch while simultaneously observing everything. The two men at the nearby table, Vincent and Carlo, sat forward slightly, their hands moving instinctively towards their jackets in synchronized motion. Anna's jaw tightened as she watched the unfolding scene. She had personally seen that plate leave the kitchen just 3 minutes ago. She had watched Chef Emmanuel inspect it meticulously, checking the internal temperature with a thermometer, examining the sear, and adjusting the presentation with tweezers until every single element was absolutely perfect. It had been flawless. She would stake her entire 8-month reputation at the Lycan on it. This wasn't about the steak. This was about a man who needed to feel powerful, who needed everyone in the room to remember that they should be afraid of him. She had seen it before. Men who wielded money or influence like weapons, who couldn't feel secure unless someone was cowering before them. Before Louise could grab her arm and before common sense could override the deeply ingrained instinct her father had instilled in her about standing up to bullies, Anna set her tray down on a nearby table and walked directly towards the corner booth. Her red apron stood out like a warning flag against the muted elegance of the dining room. Louis's whispered warning barely registered over the ringing in her ears. She stopped beside Donovan Clay's table, her posture straight, her shoulders back. Her blue-green eyes met his dark ones without a trace of the fear he was accustomed to seeing in everyone around him. Up close, she could see that he was younger than she had initially expected, mid-30s maybe. His face would have been genuinely handsome if not for the cold fury twisting his features into something almost cruel. The gold chain at his collar caught the light. The family crest tattoo peeked out from beneath his cuff. The watch on his wrist probably cost more than she made in 2 years of double shifts. "Is there a problem with your meal, sir?" Her voice was calm, professional, and as steady as a heartbeat. Donovan looked up at her, and for a fraction of a second, genuine surprise flickered across his face. Most people avoided his gaze as if it could burn them. This woman was staring directly at him as if he were just another customer having a bad day, as if he were nobody special, nobody to be feared. The surprise lasted only a moment before his expression hardened again, his eyes going cold. "The problem," he said slowly, dangerously, each word dropping like a stone into still water, "is incompetence. Do you understand what that word means?" Anna didn't blink, didn't look away, and didn't let her voice waver even slightly. "I understand it perfectly. I also understand when someone is looking for a reason to be angry." The temperature in the restaurant seemed to drop 20 degrees. Donovan's face flushed, the color rising from his collar to his cheeks. No one ever spoke to him this way. Not his lieutenants, not rival families, not anyone who valued their safety, their business, or their very life. His bodyguards half rose from their seats, their jackets falling open to reveal shoulder holsters. The entire restaurant held its breath. Someone's fork clattered against their plate, the sound impossibly loud in the oppressive silence. "Excuse me." Donovan's voice had gone deadly quiet now, even more dangerous in its softness than it had been in its earlier rage. "What did you just say to me?" Anna looked at him, really looked at him, past the expensive suit and the gold chain and the cold fury in his eyes. She saw something beneath all that armor. An exhaustion that went bone deep, a loneliness that had calcified into anger, a man drowning in an empire he had built with his own 2 hands, surrounded by people but utterly alone. A man who had forgotten what it felt like to be seen as human instead of as power incarnate. She leaned slightly forward, her voice dropping so low that only he could hear it, so quiet that even Vincent and Carlo couldn't make out the words over the blood rushing in their ears. "You need help?" 3 words. Simple, devastating, and surgical in their precision. His anger had completely deflated, leaving behind something hollow and exposed. The rage that had been burning in his chest just moments ago was gone, replaced by a feeling he couldn't quite name because he hadn't felt it in over a decade. For the first time in years, he felt something other than rage or control or the cold satisfaction of power maintained through fear. He felt exposed, seen, stripped bare by 3 words from a woman whose name he didn't even know. A waitress in a red apron had just managed to do what no rival family, no federal investigation, and no threat of violence had ever been able to accomplish. She had made Donovan Clay feel human and terrifyingly vulnerable, and he had absolutely no idea what to do with that. The kitchen door swung shut behind Anna, and the adrenaline that had held her upright drained away all at once. Her hands started shaking, not the subtle tremor of nervousness, but full-blown tremors that made her grip the edge of the stainless steel prep counter to stay steady. "What were you thinking?" Louise materialized beside her, his face pale, his voice a harsh whisper. He grabbed her elbow and pulled her into the narrow alcove by the walk-in freezer, where the security cameras couldn't see them. "Do you have any idea who that man is?" Anna shook her head, still trying to process what had just happened. The look on his face, the way he had frozen, the complete silence that had fallen over the dining room. "That's Donovan Clay." Lewis's voice dropped even lower, barely audible over the clatter of the kitchen. "Head of the Clay family. He controls half the city's underground operations. Gambling, protection, shipping, real estate. If you're moving anything illegal through this city, you're paying him a cut or you're dead." Anna felt a chill slide down her spine. "I didn't know. People who cross him disappear, Anna. Just gone. Businesses that refuse his protection burn to the ground with their owners still inside. 2 years ago, a restaurant owner on 5th Street refused to pay. They found him and his entire family at the bottom of the harbor." Lewis's hands were shaking now, too. "Nothing was ever proven, but everyone knows. Everyone." Anna leaned back against the cold metal wall, her heart hammering in her chest. She had just told a Mafia boss that he needed help, right to his face, in front of his men, in a room full of witnesses. "He's still just a person who's being rude to the staff," she said. But her voice lacked conviction now. "He's not a person, Anna. He's a monster in an expensive suit." Across the kitchen, Chef Emmanuel was already plating a replacement ribeye, his hands as steady as a surgeon's while everyone else's nerves were completely shot. He had been cooking in restaurants owned by dangerous men for 30 years. He had learned long ago that the only way to survive was to do perfect work and keep your mouth shut. The kitchen door swung open. Paolo appeared, his face still bloodless. "It's ready." Emmanuel nodded and slid the plate across the pass. Paolo took it with shaking hands and disappeared back into the dining room. In the corner booth, Donovan stared at the new steak as Paolo placed it before him with stammered apologies. The plate was perfect. The meat was perfect. Everything was exactly as he had ordered. He didn't touch it. Couldn't touch it. Those 3 words kept looping in his mind like a song he couldn't stop hearing. "You need help." Simple words, honest words. Words that no one had dared to speak to him in over a decade. His empire was built on fear, control, and calculated violence applied with surgical precision. Truth had no place in that world. Truth was weakness. Truth got you killed, betrayed, or both. He had learned that lesson at his father's knee and reinforced it with blood for 20 long years. But this young waitress had looked at him as if she could see straight through the expensive suit, the gold chain, and the reputation, as if she could see all the way down to whatever was left of the man beneath the monster that everyone feared. He thought about his life, really thought about it. The sleepless nights, lying awake at 3 a.m., wondering which of his lieutenants would be the first to try to take his throne. The constant vigilance, always watching, always calculating threats, never able to relax, even for a moment. The loneliness of trusting absolutely no one, not even the men who had sworn their loyalty with blood oaths. When had he last had a genuine conversation? When had someone last looked at him and seen Donovan instead of Donovan Clay, head of the Clay Syndicate? He couldn't remember. That realization hollowed him out. The memories came unbidden. His father, Lorenzo Clay, standing over him in their basement when Donovan was just 7 years old. A man tied to a chair begging for his life. Lorenzo's voice cold as winter. Weakness equals death. Boy, remember that. The moment you show weakness, you're dead. Now watch. Donovan had watched his first execution at the tender age of 7. He had started collecting debts at 15. His father standing beside him to make sure he understood that mercy was suicide. By 25, after his father had been assassinated by the Delgado family in a restaurant not unlike this one, Donovan had taken over and transformed the Clay Syndicate from street-level thugs into a corporate-level criminal enterprise, using real estate fronts and shell companies layered so deep that even the FBI couldn't untangle them, legitimate businesses masking illegal enterprises. He owned the Allian through 3 separate shell companies. Nobody knew. That was the entire point. Operate in the shadows. Never leave fingerprints. Never show your face unless you were reminding someone why they should be afraid. She had put herself through nursing school while working 3 jobs and raising a kid. The Allian paid the best tips, but she also worked overnight shifts at City General and tutored pre-med students on weekends. Weekends meant juggling multiple jobs, whatever it took to keep Leo enrolled in community college and to ensure she could finish her final semester. She'd learned early on that standing up to bullies was the only way to truly survive, even if they were powerful, especially if they were powerful. Her father had instilled that in her before he passed away. Fear is a choice, Mija, he'd told her once after she came home in tears because some kids at school had been picking on her. Respect is earned. Never give someone the satisfaction of knowing they've instilled fear in you if they haven't earned it. And never let anyone take your dignity just because they think they can. She'd carried those words with her for 7 years. Tonight, she felt she had honored them, even if it ended up getting her killed. 3 days crawled by. Anna diligently worked her shifts at the Allian, but she nervously watched the door, half expecting men in dark suits to appear and drag her into a dark alley. But nothing of the sort happened. The restaurant continued to operate as usual. The corner booth remained conspicuously empty on Friday night. Maybe he'd already forgotten about her. Maybe she was just too insignificant for him to bother with. Then the flowers arrived. Louise found her in the break room, clutching 24 white roses that were wrapped in expensive paper. His face was paler than usual. These were sent specifically for you. The delivery guy asked for Anna Morano by name. There was no card, no message of any kind, just perfect white roses that probably cost more than her entire weekly paycheck. Anna's stomach twisted into knots. She took the flowers, walked directly to the dumpster behind the restaurant, and unceremoniously threw them in. It was a genuine sound that felt good after weeks of constantly looking over her shoulder. I'll take 2 bunches. Your nephew's humble carrots deserve a good home. Bless you, dear. The vendor started wrapping them in brown paper. That's when Anna felt it. Eyes on her. The same prickling awareness that had kept her father alive through 15 years of detective work. The instinct that told her something wasn't quite right. She turned slowly, scanning the crowd of Saturday shoppers. Donovan Clay stood 15 feet away near the flower stall, watching her. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was dressed in dark jeans, a leather jacket, and a plain white shirt, casual clothes that should have made him look normal, approachable even, but there was no disguising that presence, that coiled tension in his posture that was like a predator momentarily at rest. His dark hair was still slicked back, but somehow it looked less severe in the morning light. Their eyes locked. The noise of the market seemed to fade into background static. The vendor's voice became distant. The world narrowed to just the two of them, 15 feet of crisp autumn air separating them, and 1,000 unspoken questions hanging between them. Donovan moved first, closing the distance with slow, deliberate steps. People unconsciously moved out of his way without even seeming to realize they were doing it. Anna's heart hammered in her chest, but she managed to keep her voice steady. "You know my name." It wasn't a question. Obviously, he'd done his research. He probably knew everything about her by now. Where she lived, where she worked, where Leo went to school. "I wanted to apologize for my behavior that night." Anna studied him. In the daylight, without the chandelier shadows and the audience of terrified staff, he looked different. Less terrifying, more human. The harsh lines of his face were softened by the natural light, but he was still dangerous. Anna wrapped her hands around her coffee cup for warmth. Because it was true. You don't terrorize people because you're strong. You do it because you're terrified. I've seen it before. People who need everyone to be afraid of them are usually the most afraid themselves. Donovan's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking near his temple, but he didn't explode. He didn't stand up and leave. He didn't threaten her. "You don't know anything about my life. Then tell me." The invitation hung in the cold air between them. For a long moment, Anna didn't think he would accept it. Then, slowly, he started talking, not about the criminal empire, not about the violence or the money or the power, but about the emotional truth that lay beneath all of it. His father's brutality, Lorenzo Clay teaching him that love was weakness, that trust would get him killed, that the only safety in the world was making sure everyone feared you more than they feared anything else. The impossibility of genuine connection when every single person in your life wants something from you. The loneliness of power that looked like strength but felt like drowning. "Every person around me wants something," he said, staring at his hands on the table. "Money, protection, status, access. Even my most trusted men are loyal because I pay them or because they're afraid of what will happen if they're not. Nobody just sees me. They see Donovan Clay, head of the Clay family. They see what I can do for them or what I can do to them, but nobody sees just Donovan." Anna listened without interruption, watching emotions play across his face that she suspected he rarely let anyone see. When he finished, she spoke quietly. "That sounds exhausting, but it's also a choice. You've built a cage and locked yourself inside it." His eyes met hers, searching for judgment, finding only honesty. "Your turn," he said. "Tell me about you." Anna hesitated. Sharing anything felt dangerous. But something about this moment, about the vulnerability he had just offered, made her answer. She told him about her father, Detective Samuel Morano, and the car bomb that took his life. About her mother's slow decline into grief that eventually killed her, too. About raising Leo while putting herself through nursing school, working 3 jobs, learning that the only way to survive was to stand up straight and refuse to bow to anyone. "I learned that life is too short to bow to bullies," she said. "Everyone deserves dignity, including you." Donovan looked at her as if she had spoken in a language he didn't understand. "You think I deserve dignity after what you know about me? I think everyone deserves a chance to be better than their worst moment." He stared at her, and something in his expression cracked. Not quite hope, but maybe the possibility of hope. The idea that redemption might exist even for someone like him. Their 20 minutes stretched to 45. The coffee went cold, forgotten. They talked about childhood, about choices, about the weight of legacy, and the impossibility of escape. It was the most honest conversation Donovan had had in over a decade, possibly ever. Finally, Anna checked her phone. "I need to get home. Leo will be wondering where I am." They stood, Anna gathering her shopping bag. Donovan moved to help her, then stopped himself, unsure if the gesture would be welcome. That's when the black sedan rolled past. Windows tinted dark, moving too slowly for normal traffic. Donovan's entire body went rigid. His hand moved instinctively toward his jacket, toward whatever weapon he carried there. His eyes tracked the sedan with the focused intensity of a predator recognizing a threat. "What's wrong?" Anna asked, alarm rising in her chest. The sedan turned the corner and disappeared. Donovan's phone was already in his hand, and he was texting rapidly. Nothing. I need to go. Stay away from me, Anna. Please. His voice was urgent now. All the vulnerability from moments ago had been replaced by cold calculation. I shouldn't have come here. This was a mistake. He walked away quickly, phone already to his ear, speaking in rapid, clipped tones to whoever answered. Anna watched him disappear into the market crowd, confused and unsettled. She didn't know that the sedan belonged to the Rossini family. She didn't know that Salvatore Rossini had watchers throughout the city looking for weaknesses in the Clay empire. She didn't know that she'd just been photographed sitting with Donovan Clay at a coffee shop, looking for all the world like two people on a date. She didn't know that she had just become a target. All she knew was that for 45 minutes she'd seen something human in a monster's eyes, and now she couldn't unsee it. 1 week later, the invitation arrived at the lycan in a cream-colored envelope. Anna's name was written in elegant script across the front. Louise handed it to her during her break, his face already pale with worry. Inside was heavy cardstock embossed with gold lettering. Giovanni's * Friday, 8 p.m. *** table reserved under Clay. Signed simply, D. Louise's voice was urgent, almost pleading. Anna, please. This is dangerous. You don't play games with men like him. People who get involved with Donovan Clay end up dead, or worse. Anna stared at the invitation, her thumb tracing the expensive paper. She should throw it away. She should ignore it completely. She should forget the coffee shop conversation and the vulnerability in his eyes and the 45 minutes that had felt like stepping into another world. But she couldn't stop thinking about him, about the loneliness beneath the armor, about the man who had admitted he was terrified while everyone else saw only terror. I'm just curious, she said, not quite believing herself. Curious gets you killed. She told herself it was concern, not attraction. He was a criminal who had built an empire on fear and violence. She was the daughter of a cop who had died fighting men exactly like him. This was impossible, dangerous, wrong in every conceivable way. Yet, something in his eyes haunted her. That moment of genuine honesty. The admission that nobody saw him as human. She couldn't shake it. Friday evening, Anna stood in her tiny apartment, staring into her closet. She owned exactly one dress suitable for a place like Giovanni's. A simple navy blue dress with a modest neckline, nothing fancy. She had bought it for her nursing school graduation ceremony 3 years ago and hadn't worn it since. Her hands shook slightly as she zipped it up. Leo knocked on her bedroom door. You look nice. Where are you going? Dinner. Just dinner. With who? Anna met her brother's eyes in the mirror. At 19, Leo was taller than their father had been, with the same sharp intelligence in his gaze. He knew when she was lying. Someone I met at work. Is it safe? She wanted to say yes, but instead said, I'll text you when I get there, and when I leave. Giovanni's occupied the ground floor of a historic building downtown. It was all dark wood paneling and leather booths, the kind of place where business deals happened in whispers and politicians dined with people they would never acknowledge in public. The maitre d' took one look at Anna's name and led her through the main dining room to a private corner table. Donovan was already there, standing when he saw her approach. He was wearing a dark suit, perfectly tailored, but his tie was slightly loosened and the top button of his shirt was undone. An old-fashioned gesture standing for a woman surprised her. His men occupied 3 adjacent tables, creating a buffer zone. Vincent and Carlo were there, plus others she didn't recognize. All of them were watching and all of them were armed. You came. Donovan admitted things that Anna suspected he had never said aloud to anyone. I'm tired, he said quietly, staring at his untouched steak. Bone-deep tired. I can't remember the last time I slept through the night without wondering if one of my men was planning to take over. I can't remember the last time I had a conversation that wasn't about money or territory or threat assessment. I'm empty, Anna. I've been empty for so long. I forgot what it felt like to be full. Anna's hand moved across the table before she could stop herself, covering his. He flinched at the contact, then went very still. Then fill yourself with something other than fear, she said softly. The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility and danger. Dessert arrived, tiramisu. Neither of them had ordered it. The waiter placed it between them with 2 spoons and retreated quickly. Anna broke the silence, her voice casual. My father was a detective. He died 7 years ago investigating organized crime connections to City Hall. Car bomb. They never solved it. She watched Donovan's face go very still. Not surprised, but something worse. Recognition. Samuel Morano. It wasn't a question. Anna's blood turned to ice in her veins. You knew him. I knew of him. Everyone did. He was thorough, relentless, dangerous to people like me. He got closer to connecting the families to legitimate government than anyone before since. The temperature at the table dropped 20 degrees. Anna pulled her hand back. Did you kill him? No. God, no. Donovan's voice was urgent, almost desperate. Anna, I swear to you that car bomb was meant for a witness my family was protecting from the Delgado syndicate. Your father was in the wrong place at the worst possible time. The Delgados were sending a message. Your father was collateral damage. Collateral damage. Anna's voice shook with rage she could barely contain. That's what you call an innocent man's death? Promise me you'll stay away from him, Leo pleaded. And as she looked into her brother's eyes, she saw their father staring back at her. I promise. No more contact. She meant it when she said it. She truly did. Across the city, in a penthouse office that offered a commanding view of the harbor, Salvatore Rossini was meticulously studying surveillance photos that were spread across his massive desk. The photos showed Donovan Clay with a young woman at a coffee shop and at a farmer's market outside Giovanni's restaurant. The girl, Salvatore said to his consigliere, tapping one of the photos with a manicured finger. She's his weakness. Clay doesn't have weaknesses, his consigliere replied cautiously. Everyone has weaknesses, Salvatore countered, his voice steely. Clay's just been better at hiding his most carefully. Salvatore leaned back in his expensive leather chair, a predatory smile slowly spreading across his face. He's been distracted for weeks, driving past a restaurant, following her around the city, find out everything about her. Within 2 days, they had unearthed Anna Morano's entire life. Her schedule at the Allian, her overnight shifts at the hospital, her weekend tutoring sessions, the address of her small studio apartment, her brother's community college classes, the bus route she regularly took, the grocery store where she did her shopping. Everything was documented, catalogued, meticulously observed. Just surveillance, Salvatore instructed, his voice low and menacing. Nothing overt. Not yet. But I want her to know she's being watched. I want Clay to know we've noticed his distraction. Tuesday evening, Anna finished a grueling double shift at the Allian and dragged herself wearily home just past midnight. Her feet ached mercilessly. Her back throbbed with pain. All she craved was sleep. A few precious hours of rest before her next hospital shift started at 6 a.m. The apartment door was ajar. A cold wave of dread washed over Anna. We watch Rossini's people, but we don't strike first. We play defense instead of offense. Show the other families that you're controlled, strategic, not simply reactive. Donovan wanted to argue, wanted to paint the entire city red until Rossini understood the devastating consequences of touching Anna Morano. But Carlo was right. Violence now would only escalate the situation, would only put Anna in even greater danger. He hated it, but he grudgingly nodded. The knock came at 2 a.m. Anna had been sitting on her overturned couch, surrounded by the wreckage of her home, far too afraid to even attempt to sleep. She opened the door, foolishly not bothering to check the peephole, because a part of her already knew exactly who it would be. Donovan stood in her hallway, utterly alone. No Vincent, no Carlo, no phalanx of bodyguards, just him, wearing jeans and a dark shirt, looking utterly exhausted, almost vulnerable. I know about your apartment, he said, his voice tight with worry. I'm handling it. Handling it how? Anna challenged him, her voice sharp with a mixture of fear and anger. More violence, more threats? How many people are you going to hurt because of me? What would you have me do? He demanded, his own frustration bubbling to the surface. They threatened you because of me, because I was stupid enough to let myself care, because I couldn't stay away like I should have. Anna stepped aside, gesturing for him to come in. The apartment was still a complete disaster. The spray-painted message screaming from the wall, broken glass glittering ominously on the floor. Donovan slowly surveyed the damage, his jaw clenching so tightly that she could see the muscle jumping. His hands curled into tight fists at his sides. "This is why I told you to stay away," he said, his voice rough with barely suppressed emotion. "Everyone I care about becomes a target. Everyone I've ever cared about ends up hurt or dead or completely destroyed. It's the cost of being who I am, what I am. You care about me?" The question came out much quieter than Anna intended. Donovan turned to face her, and the raw honesty in his eyes took her breath away. "Yes," he confessed, his voice barely a whisper. "God help me. I do. I've tried not to. I've tried to stay away, to forget about you, to convince myself you were just someone who said something interesting at the wrong moment. But I can't. I think about you constantly. I worry about you. I want to protect you. And that makes you the most dangerous person in my life. For both of us." The admission hung heavily between them, laden with implications that neither of them could ignore. Anna knew she should tell him to leave, should slam the door firmly shut, call the police, run as far away from this impossible situation as she possibly could. Everything logical, everything safe, everything her father would have wanted, pointed toward cutting off all contact immediately. Instead, she heard herself say, "I can't stop thinking about you either, and I hate it. I hate that I see something human in you when you represent everything that destroyed my family. I hate that I want to believe you could change. I hate that I care what happens to you." They stood just 3 feet apart in her wrecked apartment, the air between them electric with tension and possibility and immense danger. "This can't happen," Donovan said, his voice filled with a desperate plea, but his feet didn't move toward the door. "I know," Anna whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Neither of them moved. Neither of them looked away. The space between them felt both impossible to cross and utterly impossible to resist. Outside, in a car parked down the street, Rossini's men snapped photographs, capturing the image of the Mafia boss, utterly alone, entering the girl's apartment at 2 a.m. and staying. The weakness was now undeniably confirmed, and the trap was finally set. 2 weeks passed in an uneasy quiet. The Rossini family made no further moves. No more surveillance cars, no more threatening messages. Nothing. Anna's apartment was meticulously repaired while she was working a hospital shift. New furniture mysteriously appeared. Fresh paint covered the spray-painted wall. The locks were replaced with something far more sophisticated than her landlord would ever have installed. She didn't know it was Donovan's doing, and she didn't ask. Some part of her simply didn't want to know. Donovan stayed away physically, though his security team watched her building around the clock. He obsessively monitored her schedule, tracking her every movement through reports that felt both deeply protective and incredibly invasive. He hated himself for it, yet he couldn't stop himself from doing it. They exchanged a single text message on the 5th day. Asterisk Anna. "Thank you for whatever you did. Asterisk Donovan. Stay safe." 3 simple words. Neither of them sent anything else. Both stared at their phones for hours afterward, fingers hovering over the keyboards, typing and deleting messages that felt too honest, too dangerous, or both. Anna tried desperately to return to her normal life, her shifts at the Allian, her overnight hospital duties, her tutoring sessions. But she was constantly looking over her shoulder now, jumping at shadows, unable to shake the unnerving feeling that she was being watched. The feeling wasn't paranoia. It was the undeniable truth. Thursday night bled slowly into Friday morning. Anna's hospital shift ended at 3 a.m. The emergency room was finally quiet after a chaotic evening filled with car accidents and cardiac arrests. She was bone-tired, her scrubs stained with someone else's blood, her feet aching relentlessly in shoes supposedly designed for 12-hour shifts, but which were somehow never truly comfortable. The parking garage was nearly deserted at this late hour, the second sublevel eerily silent. Her beat-up Toyota was parked in the furthest corner because she had arrived late for her shift. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting strange, elongated shadows between the concrete pillars. Her footsteps echoed far too loudly in the unsettling silence. Anna's keys were already in her hand when she felt it, that primal awareness that something was terribly wrong. The hair on the back of her neck stood on end. 3 men emerged silently from the shadows between the parked cars. They moved with a professional, coordinated efficiency, the unmistakable precision of people who had done this kind of thing before. Anna ran, instinctively dropping her bag, not caring about her phone or her wallet or her keys, just running desperately toward the exit ramp, her tired legs suddenly finding an unexpected surge of adrenaline. But they were faster, much faster. Strong hands grabbed her violently from behind. A cloth was clamped tightly over her mouth and nose, the acrid chemical smell burning her sinuses. She tried to scream, but the sound died in her throat, muffled and useless. She tried to fight, but her limbs felt heavy, uncooperative, as if they belonged to someone else. The world tilted precariously sideways. Darkness rushed in like a suffocating wave, filling her lungs, stealing her breath. The last thing she thought, before unconsciousness finally claimed her, was Donovan. Donovan's phone shattered the tense silence of his bedroom at 3:47 a.m. He was already wide awake, staring blankly at the ceiling, unable to sleep as always. He grabbed it on the first ring. It was his head of security, his voice tight with controlled panic. "She's gone. Taken from the hospital parking garage. Happened less than 10 minutes ago." Donovan's blood turned to ice in his veins. His entire body went rigid, every muscle tensed. "Where are my men?" he demanded, his voice barely a whisper. "Disabled. 2 are in the emergency room now. Concussions. Broken bones." This was professional, boss. Military-level coordination. They knew exactly where our surveillance was positioned. Donovan was already out of bed, already dressing, his mind moving at the speed of light, rapidly calculating scenarios and potential responses. "Rossini has to be behind this," he growled. "Get Vincent and Carlo. Everyone to my estate now." He ended the call abruptly, his hands shaking with an intense rage that felt more like ice than fire. His phone buzzed almost immediately with a text message from an unknown number. He opened it with a sense of overwhelming dread, already pooling in his stomach. It was a photo. Anna was bound tightly to a chair, blindfolded with black fabric, her head tilted slightly downward, but her posture still stubbornly straight. Even restrained, even terrified, she held herself with an undeniable dignity. The message beneath the photo was chillingly simple. *trade. East Harbor territory for the girl. You have 48 hours. Instructions to follow. Donovan stared at the photo, his vision blurring with a combination of rage and helpless despair. They had taken her, had dared to put their hands on her, had terrified her because of him, because he had been stupid enough to care, selfish enough to allow himself to feel something human after decades of calculated emptiness. By 4:30 a.m., his inner circle had gathered in the estate's main conference room. Vincent, Carlo, and 8 other key lieutenants were all present, their faces grim, all of them instantly recognizing the gravity of the situation from their boss's icy demeanor. "Rossini took her," Donovan announced, his voice unnaturally calm, the kind of terrifying calm that always preceded volcanic violence. "He wants East Harbor in exchange." Vincent spoke cautiously, carefully choosing his words. "Boss, we can't give them East Harbor. That's $5 million in monthly revenue, half our shipping operations. If we surrender that territory, every other family will see it as a sign of weakness. They'll come for us." Carlo leaned forward, his expression intense. "We could hit them hard. Simultaneous raids on their operations. Force them to negotiate. We have the manpower." Donovan continued to stare at Anna's photo on his phone. Her face clearly showed fear, yes, but also something else, a defiance. The same quiet defiance she had displayed when she had told him he needed help. The same inner strength she had carried since her father had died. since she had raised her brother alone, since she had built a life out of tragedy. His old self would have coldly calculated the equation. Was one person worth an entire empire? Was one single life worth millions in revenue and the respect that kept rival families at bay? But Anna's voice echoed in his mind. Asterisk, you need help. Everyone deserves dignity. Tear down the walls, he commanded. His voice steady despite the turmoil raging within him. Call Detective Ramirez. A stunned silence fell over the room. 9 men stared at their boss as if he had suddenly started speaking a foreign language. Boss, you want to call the police? Vincent's voice was filled with genuine confusion and concern. In their world, calling law enforcement was simply unthinkable. It was betrayal. It was suicide. I want to save her, Donovan said, his voice firm. And I'm done with bloodshed solving everything. I'm done with the way we've always done things. Call Ramirez. Tell her Donovan Clay wants to meet. Tell her it's about a kidnapping. At 5 a.m. Donovan sat alone in a booth at Mel's Diner on Route 7, a deliberately neutral location where neither cops nor criminals usually congregated. Detective Julia Ramirez slid into the seat across from him, her expression caught somewhere between suspicion and utter disbelief. Mr. Clay, she said, not extending her hand. Neither did he. To what do I owe this impossible moment? She looked back at Donovan, her expression grim. Whatever you need, I'll provide it. Intelligence, locations, guard rotations, everything I know about Rossini's operations. You understand you're burning your entire network by cooperating with us? She asked him, her voice serious. I understand, Donovan replied without hesitation. Within 2 hours, Ramirez had assembled a full task force, FBI agents, SWAT team coordinators, forensic analysts. They traced the photo's metadata to an industrial district by the docks, cross-referencing it with the intelligence Donovan had provided about Rossini's properties. They identified 3 possible locations, then quickly narrowed it down to one, an abandoned shipping warehouse that Rossini used for off-the-books operations. The raid was planned for nightfall, 18 hours away. Every minute felt like an eternity. Donovan insisted on being present at the raid. Ramirez refused flatly. He pushed back. She pushed back even harder. Finally, they reached a grudging compromise. You come unarmed as a civilian consultant, she told him sternly. You wear a vest marked consultant in bright yellow letters. You stay behind the entry team. You follow every single order instantly. The moment you break protocol, you're arrested and removed. Understood, Donovan replied, his voice tight with suppressed tension. Understood, Ramirez echoed, staring directly into his eyes. In the cold, cavernous warehouse by the docks, Anna slowly regained consciousness. Her head throbbed painfully where they had struck her during the struggle. Zip ties dug sharply into her wrists, which were bound tightly behind her to a metal chair. The blindfold was gone now, and she could see the stark concrete walls, high windows that let in the dull gray light of dawn, and she could smell the familiar odor of salt water and harsh industrial chemicals. Footsteps approached slowly, the sound of expensive shoes clicking sharply on the concrete floor. Salvatore Rossini crouched down before her, his face displaying a friendly, almost disarming expression that made her skin crawl. Miss Morano, he said smoothly, I apologize for the rough treatment. Nothing personal, you understand? Just business. You're using me as leverage against Donovan, Anna replied, her voice surprisingly steady. That means he cares about me. That means you're afraid of him. Salvatore's friendly expression faltered slightly. Careful, girl. Men like you have taken things from me my whole life, Anna said, her voice rising with anger. My father, my mother, my sense of safety. But you can't take my dignity unless I give it to you. She met his gaze directly, unflinching. And I'm not giving it to you. Salvatore stood up abruptly, his smile vanishing completely. Something in her unwavering composure clearly unsettled him. Victims were supposed to beg, to cry, to break down, to plead for mercy. This woman looked at him as if he were utterly insignificant, barely worth her attention. He left without another word, the heavy door slamming shut behind him. Anna sat alone in the darkness, breathing steadily, deliberately counting her heartbeats, refusing to let fear consume her. Her father had taught her that dignity is a choice. Fear is a choice. She chose strength. She chose to believe that Donovan would come for her, and she chose to survive. 7 p.m. The sun had set an hour ago, casting the industrial district in deep shadow. SWAT teams were positioned strategically around the warehouse in coordinated silence, black-clad figures moving like ghosts through the darkness. FBI vans were parked 3 blocks away, the command center inside humming with controlled tension. Donovan stood among them, wearing a tactical vest marked "Consultant" in bright yellow letters, feeling absurdly out of place. For 30 years he had operated outside the law, above it, around it. Flashbangs detonated with blinding white light and deafening sound. FBI! On the ground! Hands where we can see them! Shouted commands echoed through the warehouse. Boots pounded on concrete. The sharp crack of a door being breached split the air. Donovan followed closely behind the entry team, every instinct screaming at him to take charge, to push forward, to find Anna himself. But he forced himself to hold his position, to trust the training and procedure that felt so foreign and so utterly constraining and yet so undeniably necessary. They moved swiftly through the warehouse, room by room, storage areas filled with stolen goods, an office with financial records scattered haphazardly across a desk. 2 Rossini soldiers were apprehended in the first 2 minutes, forced face down on the ground and cuffed before they even had a chance to reach their weapons. Back room, northeast corner. An agent's voice crackled urgently through the radio. Donovan's heart stopped. He involuntarily moved forward, but a SWAT member's firm hand on his chest stopped him in his tracks. "Wait for clear," the officer said, his voice firm. Seconds stretched into agonizing eternities. More shouted commands, more sounds of struggle. Then, finally, "Clear!" Hostage secured. Donovan pushed past the SWAT member, all protocol completely forgotten. The back room was cold and stark, lit by a single bare bulb hanging precariously from the ceiling. Anna sat tied to a metal chair in the center of the room, her wrists bound behind her, her face bruised and swollen, but her eyes alert and furious and undeniably alive. When she saw him, a mixture of profound relief and utter confusion crossed her face in equal measure. "You came," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Of course I came," he replied, his voice breaking on the words. Ramirez was already cutting Anna free, her tactical knife slicing efficiently through the zip ties with practiced skill. Anna's hands came forward, rubbing circulation back into her numb wrists. She was shaking uncontrollably now that the immediate danger had passed, the adrenaline wearing off to reveal exhaustion and sheer terror. Around them, the SWAT team secured the building. 7 Rossini soldiers were arrested, cuffed, and lined up against the wall. Salvatore himself had managed to escape through a back exit just before the raid began, but his operation was crippled. His men were in custody. His warehouse had been compromised. The FBI had gathered enough evidence scattered throughout the building to put his entire organization under federal investigation. Anna stood on unsteady legs. Donovan moved instinctively to catch her, but Ramirez was already there, professional and efficient. "Ambulance is outside. We need to get you checked out," she said. "I'm fine," Anna insisted, her voice trembling. "I just want to go home." "Protocol, Miss Morano," Ramirez replied firmly. "You've been held for over 15 hours. We need medical clearance." Anna looked past Ramirez, directly into Donovan's eyes. Their gazes locked for a long, silent moment. So many questions hung unspoken between them, so few answers, just the overwhelming reality that she was alive and that he had chosen the law over bloodshed. And somehow that mattered more than either of them could fully articulate. City General Hospital at midnight. Anna had been evaluated, scanned, prodded, and given fluids. She received treatment for dehydration and cream to help with the bruising on her wrists and face. Dehydrated, traumatized, but medically stable. She had declined the offer to stay overnight for observation. Donovan waited in the hallway, still wearing the tactical vest marked consultant, because he'd forgotten he had it on. He looked completely out of place amidst the hospital staff in scrubs and the police officers taking statements. A mafia boss in tactical gear slumped against the wall, staring blankly. Ramirez approached him with 2 cups of terrible hospital coffee in her hands. She offered him one. He took it but didn't drink. That was quite a risk, Mr. Clay. Helping us, cooperating with federal law enforcement, providing intelligence that will likely be used against you in future investigations. It was the right thing to do. Ramirez studied him with the same sharp assessment she'd used in the diner 12 hours earlier. Miracles do happen, I suppose. She paused, something softening in her expression. For what it's worth, Sam would have appreciated you choosing the legal route, even if it's just this once. He always believed people could change if they wanted it badly enough. Donovan's throat tightened. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Ramirez squeezed his shoulder once, a gesture of something almost like respect, and walked away to coordinate with her team. Anna emerged from the examination room 20 minutes later, wearing borrowed scrubs because her clothes were evidence now. She looked exhausted, fragile in a way he'd never seen her, but her spine was straight. Her eyes were clear. She found Donovan in the hallway, still slumped against the wall. When he looked up as she approached, she saw something that stopped her breath. Tears in his eyes. Donovan Clay, who commanded an empire through fear and violence, who never showed weakness, who'd spent 30 years building walls so high nothing could reach him, had tears running down his face. I thought I'd lost you. His voice was wrecked, raw with emotion he'd probably never expressed aloud. Anna sat down beside him on the floor, the hospital hallway cold and institutional around them. Nurses passed. Police officers took statements nearby, but they existed in their own small bubble of honesty. You called the police. You, Donovan Clay, called the police, worked with the FBI, provided intelligence against your own interests. You were right. That night at the restaurant I needed help. Boss, what are you talking about? 15 years of building this empire and you're just going to throw it away? The other families will tear us apart the moment they sense weakness. Voices overlapped, rising in pitch and desperation. These men had built their lives around Donovan's leadership. Their incomes, their identities, their sense of purpose, all tied to the organization he was now declaring over. Donovan raised his hand for silence. The gesture still carried enough weight that the room quieted, though hostile confusion remained on every face. I'm done. This life, this organization, everything we've built, it's poison. It's killed everything good in me. It's cost me my humanity, and I'm choosing to walk away before it costs me anything else. Vincent stood slowly, his face a mixture of loyalty and betrayal. Boss, I followed you for 12 years through territory wars, federal investigations, rival families trying to take us down. I've bled for you, but this is suicide. You walk away, you're a target. We're all targets. I know. Then why? Because someone showed me it's possible to be more than what my father raised me to be. Because I'm tired of blood and fear and empty victories. Because for the first time in my life, I want to be someone worth caring about. Donovan's voice was steady, certain. Maybe it is suicide, but it's my choice and I'm making it. Carlo spoke carefully. What about us? What happens to everyone who depends on this organization? You'll have options. I'm not abandoning you, but I'm not leading you anymore. The room erupted again, but Donovan was already walking out. The decision was made. Their acceptance or resistance didn't change it. Over the next week, Donovan met secretly with Detective Ramirez and District Attorney Patricia Chun in a secure federal building downtown. The meetings were long, exhausting, and legally complex. Full cooperation, Donovan stated flatly at the first meeting. Donovan still had influence, and he used it to help relocating if they wanted fresh starts or transfers to other families. Recommendations provided, no hard feelings. Most chose to leave. The life lost its appeal when the leader no longer believed in it. Vincent took a security consulting position. Carlo moved to Florida with his family, opening the restaurant he'd dreamed about for years. Others scattered, grateful for the chance to walk away from violence. Some stayed in the criminal world, transferring to Delgado or Kovac operations. Donovan didn't judge them. Everyone made their own choices. But the other families didn't accept his retirement gracefully. 3 weeks after the warehouse raid, a council convened in a private room at the Harbor Club. Salvatore Rossini, despite his legal troubles, still commanded enough influence to call the meeting. Representatives from the Delgado and Kovac families attended, the remaining power structure of the city's criminal underworld, gathering to discuss a problem. Clay knows too much, Rossini stated flatly. Financial connections, territory agreements, operations we've kept hidden for decades. He's cooperating with federal investigators. Every conversation he has with them puts all of us at risk. Michael Kovac, elder statesman of organized crime, nodded slowly. He's a liability. What do you propose? What we always do with liabilities, we eliminate them. A contract was placed on Donovan Clay's life. $2 million, open to anyone with the skills and connections to reach a man under federal protection. The word spread through criminal networks within hours. Anna was moved to a federal safe house upstate, 40 miles from the city, surrounded by marshals and protective protocols that felt like prison. She protested every step of the way. I'm not leaving the city. I have Leo, my job, my life. I can't just disappear. Ramirez was firm, her tone allowing no argument. Until the threat is neutralized, you're not safe in the city. Every family knows you're connected to Clay now. You're leverage. You're a target. This isn't negotiable. Anna hated feeling helpless, hated being locked away while others decided her fate. But she recognized the danger. The Rossini family had already kidnapped her once. Other families would try again or worse. Leo was placed in protective custody separately, still attending classes under martial supervision. The separation from her brother felt like losing another piece of herself. She and Donovan were allowed supervised phone calls twice a week, 15 minutes each time, monitored by federal agents, recorded for legal purposes. The conversations were stilted at first. Both of them hyper-aware of the audience, but gradually they found honesty even within the constraints. When this is over, Donovan said during the third call, his voice tired but hopeful, I want to try, really try a normal life. No empire, no violence, no power games, just living like a regular person. What does a retired mafia boss do with a normal life? Anna's voice held gentle humor despite everything. I don't know. That's what makes it terrifying and appealing at the same time. Maybe construction work. My father started as a carpenter before the family pulled him in. Maybe I could learn that. Something with my hands. Something honest. You'd be good at that. Building instead of destroying. Silence on the line. Waited with things they couldn't say with agents listening. I'd like to find out, Donovan said quietly. With you. If you let me try. Anna's throat tightened. This was impossible. He was a criminal dismantling his empire. She was a nurse caught in federal protection. They came from worlds designed to destroy each other. But she'd seen something real beneath his armor. Something worth believing in. I'd like that too. When this is over, when we're both safe, I'd like to see who you are when you're just Donovan instead of Donovan Clay. I'd like to meet him too. Donovan descended the remaining steps until they stood face to face. I destroyed a poison we all drank willingly. The violence, the fear, the constant calculation of who to hurt next. That's not power, Victor. That's prison. Philosophical now. Victor's smile was cold. Love made you weak, Clay. Your father would be ashamed. Love made me human. My father raised a monster. I'm choosing something different. Victor's hand moved toward his jacket. Slowly, deliberately, Donovan saw the outline of a weapon beneath the expensive fabric. Federal agents were watching from the courthouse windows, but they were too far away. Victor could shoot and be gone before anyone reached them. Donovan didn't run, didn't reach for a weapon he no longer carried, just held Victor's gaze with steady calm. You think fear is power? Donovan said quietly. Try love. Victor's hand hesitated. Something in Donovan's complete lack of fear unsettled him. This wasn't the reaction he'd expected. Federal agents materialized from the courthouse entrance. Weapons drawn, moving with tactical precision. Hands where we can see them. Now, Victor was apprehended within seconds. The concealed weapon removed from his jacket. His hands cuffed behind his back. He didn't resist, just stared at Donovan with something that might have been respect or hatred or both. Ramirez approached as Victor was led away. Good instinct, not running. We've been monitoring him for weeks. Knew he'd make a move eventually. You just gave us the evidence we needed. I wasn't trying to give you evidence. I just didn't want to run anymore. Ramirez studied him with the same sharp assessment she had used throughout this entire impossible journey. You've changed, Clay. I'm still not sure I believe it completely, but you've changed. I'm trying. That's all I can do. Anna locked the front door of the Marano Community Health Clinic at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday evening, exhausted but satisfied. Can I have your number? Donovan asked. The new one, if you're comfortable with that. Anna hesitated only a moment before reciting it. He entered it into his phone, a basic model, nothing expensive. She entered his in return. Maybe dinner next month, he suggested. Slow, careful, no pressure. I can't promise this works, Anna said. Honestly, I'm the daughter of a cop you indirectly endangered. You're a reformed criminal. This is complicated in ways most relationships never are. The best things usually are. They hugged, tentative at first, then genuine. His arms around her felt different than she'd imagined. Not possessive or controlling, just warm, human. They parted at the coffee shop. Donovan walked one direction. Anna walked another. No promises beyond dinner next month. No declarations of love or forever. Just two people choosing to try. Anna returned to the clinic to retrieve her forgotten scarf. On her desk, she'd framed a photo that a security camera had captured that night at the Allian. Her in the red apron pointing at Donovan mid-gesture, the moment frozen in time when everything changed. Below it, she'd written in simple script, "You need help. Everyone does." She turned off the lights, locked the door, stepped into the winter evening. The city spread before her, full of possibility and danger and a messy complexity of real life. She walked with confidence toward an uncertain but hopeful future. Across the street, Donovan watched her go. Then he turned and walked in the opposite direction, hands in his pockets, breath fogging in the cold air. Not yet, maybe not ever, but someday, possibly, they might find out if redemption and love could coexist with complicated histories and impossible beginnings. For now, they were both learning to be human. That was enough. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed the story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine.